What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. This is where I talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that I love to talk about: movies, video games, comic books, and TV shows. And right now, I'd like to give you guys my thoughts on episode 4 of Stephen King's The Stand, now showing on CBS All Access. And if you'll remember, I already have reviewed the first 3 episodes. And the first episode I liked. I was frustrated by the fact that it decided to tell a non-linear story where it would jump back and forth between flashbacks, flash forwards, present day, whatever the case may be. It would definitely tell a non-linear type story. I liked the first episode, but I did not like that creative choice. The second episode I got really frustrated with, because the second episode leaned into that non-linear type storytelling. It was just jumping all over the place. And unless you really knew the story of The Stand, like I do, I mean, I had no trouble following it, but unless you really knew the story, I think you would have a challenge following it. I also believe that this non-linear jumping around type storytelling, it robs you of the journey with these characters. The movie is called The Stand. The story, the book, the series, whatever you want to call it, is called The Stand. And it is about these characters standing against evil, standing against Randall Flagg. And it doesn't begin in Boulder. And they kind of wanted to make it start in Boulder. And I don't like that. It doesn't begin in Boulder. For Stu, the story begins in Arnett, Texas. For Franny, it begins in Maine. For Harold, it begins in Maine. For Larry, it begins in New York. You know, for all these different characters, it begins in different parts of the country. And they make their journey from wherever they start to Hemingford Home or Boulder. And then from there, Mother Abigail decides to send 4 of them further to Las Vegas. So the movie is about a journey. And all these flashbacks, and flash forwards and whatnot, it's robbing us of that journey. We don't get a sense of the time, the passage of time. We're not getting that feel of the passage of time, because it's just very story in Boulder, flashback to relevant things that happened during the journey, back to Boulder, flashback to relevant things that happened on the journey, and we just don't feel that sense of just the effect that Captain Trips had on people, or the effect that Captain Trips had on society. We don't get we've hardly seen any dreams. We're hearing a lot about the dreams, but we're not seeing a lot of the dreams. So yeah, I feel like we've been robbed of the story, or of the journey. Episode 3 I liked a lot better than episode 2, because the story felt more linear. It still had its flashbacks, but it felt like it was telling a more straightforward story. Now we're in episode 3, or episode 4. And how do I feel about it? Well, I kind of feel about the same way I feel about episode 3. It's better. It's better, but it still relies too much on flashbacks. And I think we've gone too far. Like, we're past the point of no return. That's just how they're going to tell the story of The Stand in this version of The Stand, is they're going to choose to tell it in flashbacks. And I hope that one day we get a 10, 12 hour telling of The Stand that starts in Arnett, Texas, or it starts on the military base where Campion breaks out of, and we get a story that emphasizes the journey, because that's what The Stand is about, and I think that's what the filmmakers missed here, personally. But in this, we do get some nice moments. We get Harold professing his love to Franny in episode 4. Harold professes his love to Franny, and she rejects him, which causes his anger to grow. We get Harold and Franny. They run into a serial rapist on the road who has some women held captive, and one of those women is Dana Jurgens, who becomes a big part, or at least in the book and the original miniseries, she became a big part of the storyline. We get Stu and Glenn. They catch up with Harold and Franny, and they're able to help rescue them, even though it's really Dana Jurgens who picks up the crowbar or the pipe or whatever it is and rescues herself. We get the committee, the Boulder Free Zone Committee. We get them, voting. First of all, they turn on the power. They vote to make the committee stand as the committee that runs Boulder. and they decide that they're going to send spies out west. And the spies that they choose are the same spies that we've had in every other iteration of this story, be it the miniseries or the book, or at least ish. There's some gender bending that goes on here. So they send Judge Harris, who in the book and in the original miniseries was a male. In this case, Judge Harris is a female, and that's fine. I don't think it's going to affect the story in any way. There's nothing about the character that makes him have to be male. But I am going to miss Ozzie Davis's portrayal of that character. They also send Dana Jurgens, who's introduced in this episode. They send her out west as well. And they also send Tom Cullen, Moon. That spells Tom Cullen. And I really like this iteration of the character. And I really like the way that they set up his trip out west. You know, in the original, they went through a whole hypnotism thing where they hypnotized him, and in this one, I think they tried to stand a little bit more on the intelligence of Tom Cullen. While he may have some delays, developmentally, he's still an intelligent person, and they definitely reinforce that in this episode, especially in the segment where Nick, it's a flashback, of course it's a flashback, but in the segment where Nick and Tom, they're traveling to Hemingford Home, and they come across Julie Lowry, who, just like in the book and just like in the original series, is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and she tries to seduce Nick, and then we find out that she's this horrible person by the way that she treats Tom. And when Nick rejects her, she actually goes off the deep end and tries to kill both of them. Again, very, very similar to the other iterations of the character. And then finally, we get the sending of the spies out west, and then we catch up with Nadine and Harold. Nadine, who is seducing Harold in order to get him to kill Mother Abigail and the committee. And Harold figures out how he's going to do it. He's going to do it via explosives from the nearby ski resorts. He's going to find some of those explosives and take out the committee. And in the process, while they're up there on the mountain getting those explosives out, Teddy, who is Harold's best friend, he finds them, and Nadine kills him in cold blood, kills Teddy in cold blood. And I think that's relevant because in the original Stand miniseries, I always felt like Nadine was a victim also, right? She didn't want to be submitting herself to Flag. She didn't want to hurt anybody. She felt like there was no way out. At least that's the way that I interpreted this character. Whereas in this Nadine, she very much wants to be with Flag, and she very much wants to be complicit to what he wants to do. And that's going to be a very interesting character arc, because we know how Nadine ends. We know her ending. If you've read the book or seen the original series, you know how she ends. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops and how her realization of who Randall Flagg is, it comes about. But again, this was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. I would put it on par with episode 3, where for the most part they told a linear story that kind of flowed, and when they had to flash back to something that was relevant, they did so, and they did so fairly effectively. I'm still tired of the flashbacks. I don't like the flashbacks. I wish that they would not do them, but at the same time, like I said, that ship has sailed. That's how they're going to tell this story, and that's a bummer because I just feel like we don't get to know our main characters the way that I would like. As far as main characters go, where is Ray? Where is Ray? If you remember the book and the miniseries, Ralph. By the way, Ray is a gender bent version of Ralph. Ralph was on the committee. He was one of the main players. And it looks like Ray is just kind of Mother Abigail's lackey. I'm not a fan of what they're doing with the Brentner character at all. Now, I have no problem with gender bending, but you gender bend, you make Ralph into a woman named Ray, and then you make the Ralph character, the Brentner character, the Ray character, whatever you want to call it, you make it less important. The character has become a woman and is also now less important. I don't know if that is really the optics that you want. Now, that being said, there's still 5 episodes left. They're probably going to do a Ray backstory episode where we focus on Ray, who she is and what role she's playing in Mother Abigail's new society. But so far, it hasn't been good. hasn't been good. but like I said, I did like this episode. Nothing about The Stand so far has been great. Nothing has been phenomenal, but it's been very serviceable, to even good. Serviceable to good. With the exception of the second episode, I still can't get past how much I did not enjoy the second episode. But episodes 3 and 4, I would say, are good. Episode 1, I would say, is good. Episode 2, I would say, is Alright, so that's my thoughts on episode 4 of Stephen King's The Stand on CBS All Access. What did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your take on it. While you're down there commenting, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out a lot of content, and I want to make sure that you're up to date with everything that I'm doing. And as always, thank you so much for joining me right here at the LQ Review, where we get to talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.